I totally get it. You're trying to get noticed and you don't know how. I mean, raise your hand if wondering where your next booking will come from keeps you up at night. I know how that feels like. I was there once too, but I'm about to help you get clear on how to increase your bookings and inquiries. After coaching many portrait and wedding photographers, I realized they all had one thing in common that was holding them back from booking their dream clients. They didn't know how to market themselves. Once they got clarity on how to show up and put what they learned from me into action, they began to book more of their dream clients. And now I'm excited to help you do the same. So I've created a mini course called Crystal Clear Marketing to, you guessed it, help you get crystal clear on how to attract and book your dream clients. I mean, the year I implemented this, my revenue grew from $69,000 to $137,000 in just 1 year. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So in case you're wondering, inside of the Crystal Clear Marketing mini course, I share how to optimize your website so that more of your dream clients inquire and book, how to go from being a generalist to becoming a specialist, and why it matters, how to find out who you are at your core and fuse it fearlessly into your business. Also, how to show up on IG so you attract quality followers. That's so important. How to make the money you deserve while feeling fulfilled with your work, and how to make marketing effortless and fun, because it should be. Running our business should be fun. So what I'm so excited to share with you is that I've made this very affordable. And right now until January 27th, it's available for a special introductory price. It's the lowest freaking price it'll ever be. And after that, the price will be going up forever. So to get all the deets and enroll in this mini course, go to sarahmonica.com/crystal clear. Again, head over to sarahmonica.com/crystal clear. I cannot wait to see you in there. And number one, the thing that always inspires me to share anyway is, for example, I know you probably had a goal that you had and you were excited for and you didn't reach. I know a lot of you reached out to me and said, this was going to be my first full-time year and then this happened, or I quit my job and then this happened and I wasn't able to bring in as much income through my photography. So I know this happened to a lot of us in different ways, and I'm sharing that with you so that you don't feel alone. Like, my number one thing is I never want anyone to feel alone. So you know what? For me, it's worth it to show up vulnerably like this. When I first started my wedding photography business back in 2011, I made just $5,000 in my business. Now, I bring in multiple six figures per year while working only 30-hour weeks serving my dream couples. I'm here to help you discover that it's so possible to have what you want when you want in your business so that you can create the life you've always dreamed of and deserve. Oh my goodness. Welcome to episode 43. I can't believe we're at the end of 2020. Man, what a freaking year. I'm so excited for this podcast episode. I mean, I've done it so far last year when I first launched the podcast. I did a episode called My 2019 Wins, Failures, and Lessons. And this year I'm doing it a little bit differently because something felt off about calling out my failures. I mean, failures at the end of the day, if you take what you learned from your failure, it ends up being a lesson. So why not just review the wins and the lessons? I don't want to go down into a deeper hole of, reliving that feeling of feeling like I failed, because at the end of the day, maybe that's how I felt in the moment that I failed, right? That's how we all feel if something doesn't go to plan, or we tried to do our best at something and then we didn't actually hit our goal. So it's a shitty feeling. It's not the best feeling. So I'm like, you know what? Energetically, I don't want to go back to reviewing my failures. I might as well come out on the other side and celebrate the lessons instead. And this episode, as usual, is I'm open and vulnerable with you guys. And I hope that it helps you feel better about your 2020 as well. And I almost said 2022. I don't know why. So I hope it makes you feel better about 2020 as well. And I hope that you also choose to maybe look at your wins and your lessons instead of maybe everything that didn't happen for you this year. So at the beginning of this year, I had initial goals like I set for myself every single year. Then I did something different right in the middle of the year because of the pandemic. I learned from this podcast called Focus on This podcast, and it basically pairs with my full focus planner, the planner I'm obsessed with and I use all the time. And what I learned from them is that basically it's okay to revisit your goals, especially during a time when shit hits the fan and things really change in a way that was so unexpected, is out of our control. So basically I had my initial goals for the year, which I shared in episode 10 of the Shine and Thrive podcast for my 2020 year. Then what I did halfway through the year, I did what's called the 4 R's, which I learned from the Focus on This podcast. And that was, I chose to either recommit. I looked at all of my goals and I chose to either recommit to them, revise, replace, or remove. And I also did a podcast episode on that, on how you could do that. But yeah, basically, so this year is kind of messy and all over the place with goals. Halfway through the year, I changed them a bit and all of that. So I decided that instead of me going through what goals I had initially and kind of walking you through if I did them or not, I'm just going to share in this episode with you what went well and what didn't. And a lot of them, the things that were wins and lessons, had to do with either achieving those goals or not reaching those goals. So that's what felt good with planning out this episode. And yeah, I'm excited to dive in. And one thing for you guys to know, the next episode I will share. So I basically created 2 episodes for the end of the year because I really wanted to make sure you guys got a lot of value out of it. So you can go into 2021 with a nice plan, a guide of how you can like plan for next year, and also how you can celebrate how this year went and really like give yourself a pat on the back because you're here and there is a lot to celebrate. So this is a 2-parter. So the next episode after this one, which is episode 44, I will share with you what 2021 has in store for us and the 3 steps I took to plan for it. And that one will include my new goals for 2021. These 2 episodes took a lot of time to put together, but they are so worth it. I want to be here on this journey with you guys, and I want to lead you along to share what works for me. Okay, so deep breath. Here I go into getting fucking vulnerable with you guys. Okay, so first I'm going to dive into the wins. So win number 1 was that I created my very first online course I ever created, which was OMI, Outsourcing Made Easy for Photographers. And I made $18,000 in my first year selling it as an online course. So some of you may know that in 2019, I started off teaching outsourcing through workshops here in my house, and it ended up being so valuable to everyone. And I felt like the better way to deliver this was to actually have an online course so people can keep going back and reviewing the systems and workflows I have in place, because that way you can actually be much more successful at implementing. So I created my in-person workshop into an online course because I want to be able to reach photographers around the world to really help them, achieve more freedom in their life by not working themselves to the bone and actually making more money in the process. So this is an interesting one. This is like a little, this was a journey this year for me because I had a much, much bigger goal to enroll a lot more students in OMI than I actually did. So basically, if you guys listened to my podcast episode last year, my goal was to make $400,000 in OMI. So in Outsourcing Made Easy, the online course, right? That was just like my mentor James Wedmore likes to call it, a hairy, scary goal. So I like to just dream big. Why not put that number into the universe and see what happens, right? That was a big, big goal. And that's I don't know what would have happened if a pandemic didn't hit. But it's kind of crazy that literally as soon as I launched my outsourcing course in March, that's when everything started happening here in Ontario, where we were going into lockdown, and photographers had no idea what was going to happen to the wedding season. So who the heck was going to invest money into an online course about outsourcing in that time? So I knew it was still so valuable, because that way, photographers had more time to spend on learning how to create these foundations and systems in their business while still shooting a little bit. So it was actually an amazing time to do that. But I understand a lot of people had fear around investing in themselves at that point, and it's totally understandable. So in that time, I was so disappointed, because I put in so much work into creating this online course that actually takes so much work, and launching it. And I had not even hit my goal, even close. And I was just like, I thought it was a failure. But then after a couple weeks of like literally feeling pretty down, I think it was like 2 to 3 weeks, and I started like binge eating again, which I haven't done in a while. I realized, and Rory was amazing to support me through this. I realized that, first of all, the course is done. It's created. That's a big achievement in itself. Number 2, I was able to help many students still learn how to outsource this year. And I actually had people enroll in the middle of a pandemic. So that is incredible. And now all I could do is know that this course is now created, and I'm ready, and I've learned so many lessons on how to effectively teach and launch next time, that it can be an even bigger success. So I'm being very, very open and vulnerable, and especially with my like deep breathing right now, because that's something I'm also learning, is to just share more vulnerably, because I'm someone that really wants to be perfect, and when I'm not perfect, I feel like people are judging me. And this is me just showing up so that you feel confident to just like show up, even if you're nervous about sharing something. And number 1, the thing that always inspires me to share anyway is, for example, I know you probably had a goal that you had and you were excited for, and you didn't reach. I know a lot of you reached out to me and said, this was going to be my first full-time year, and then this happened, or I quit my job and then this happened, and I wasn't able to bring in as much income through my photography. So I know this happened to a lot of us in different ways, and I'm sharing that with you so that you don't feel alone. Like, my number 1 thing is I never want anyone to feel alone. So you know what? For me, it's worth it to show up vulnerably like this. So you know what? I'm going to celebrate that I was able to bring in $18,000. Like, that's incredible. Like, man, $18,000 is a lot of money, and I'm very, very proud. And a lot of money went into creating it. So it was kind of like, it was profitable, but a lot of money went into creating it and all of that. So it's not like I kept all the $18,000, because of course, as a business owner, we have expenses, but I am celebrating it. So that was a huge win this year. Okay. Win number 2, I got invited to speak at my first conference, which was virtual, of course, this year. And that was Photographers Unite, hosted by the Image Salon. And the topic was why you don't have to cap your wedding bookings in 2021. And I'll definitely link that in the show notes in case you want to watch that. But that was something that really scared me, but was so exciting for me to be able to speak to other photographers in the industry alongside literally other photography mentors that I looked up to over the years. I was like, what? I'm actually in this lineup. I cannot even believe this. So that was a huge win. My palms were so freaking sweaty when I was about to talk. It was only a 20-minute talk, and I had everything prepared, but I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. So that was like a huge win. I'm so honored and so grateful for the Image Salon for inviting me to speak to everyone and trusting me with that. Okay, win number 3. I worked out on average 4 times per week consistently. So that was one of my goals this year, and I feel like I achieved it. There is about a month's worth of time in there. I think like a 3-week period and a 1 or 2 week period throughout the year. So maybe 6 weeks in total, where it ended up being once a week workout or something like that. But in November, I thought I was doing yoga, and I thought I was getting appendicitis or something, because we were doing yoga, and I went up into up dog, and I was like, ow! Roy and I were doing yoga virtually, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Oh my God, I can't even sit down. And Rory's like, what the hell's going on? Do we have to go to the hospital? So we had to like stop yoga, and there was this huge pain, and man, long story short, and then I think it ended up being just like a torn, like almost torn muscle, because I didn't tear a muscle yet. It was like on the verge. It was like that sensitive feeling. So I basically rested for like 3 weeks without working out just to be safe, because I didn't want to tear it even more. And then it ended up being fine. So now I'm back to working out and stuff. So that was interesting. I'm so happy it wasn't appendicitis. I'm so happy I didn't tear a muscle, but that was like a little bit of a break. And then, you know, throughout the rest of the year, there were just like maybe weeks that were a little bit busier and I kind of fell off track. But overall, for me to have worked out on average 4 times a week consistently, I am so happy about that. And I'm so proud of it. I'm giving myself a big pat on the back, literally. Okay, win number 4. I ran 3 half marathons on my own with Rory. So on our own. Basically, because there were no marathons happening, we were like, you know what, why can't we just do it on our own? So we did that. That felt really amazing, running together through country roads and having that to do together during this whole time. That was really special. Win number 5. I meditated the most I ever have in a year. And to be exact, I counted, because I'm a nerd, 213 days out of 365 days. That's how many days I've meditated in a year. So I could have looked at this as a failure, because my goal from last year was to meditate every single day for at least 10 minutes a day. And I actually did that every single day for the first 4 months. And then I kind of like dropped off. And you know what? I was kind of beating myself up for it throughout the whole year. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I knew it. If you missed that day, I knew you would miss 2 days and then 3 days, and then it would snowball. And now look where you are, you know, beating myself up. And of course, as I've been reflecting more inward the past month near the end of the year, as I always do, I'm like, you know what? Let me look at my habits app. It's called Habity. I track my habits through the app called Habity. It's free. Love it. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was still meditating quite a lot. And I've never really meditated this much in a year. And then boom, it clicked. I was like, wow, okay, I didn't achieve my goal, but I did meditate the most I ever have. And that is a huge win. And if I never set that goal, maybe I wouldn't have hit this amount of meditating in a year. So that's a win. All right, win number 6. There's a lot of wins, so hang tight, but I'm sure you can learn something from every one of them. Win number 6. I successfully pivoted to generating more income from couples, family, branding, and coaching sessions this year to make up for the lost wedding income. So because I had maybe, I'd say 50% of my weddings move or reschedule, that's both the same thing. So reschedule. I ended up thinking, okay, how am I going to bring in more income? And I just started to talk more on social media about offering family sessions, couple sessions, branding, coaching sessions. And I ended up getting in total, when I combine all of those, 40 in total compared to last year's 18. So that was a big win. I was able to bring in more income that way. And normally every year I mainly focus on photographing weddings. That is my favorite thing to photograph, just weddings. And sessions are kind of like a fun little cherry on top to have. And usually it's just engagement sessions of those couples where I'm photographing their weddings. So I normally don't have too many sessions in a year because it's not where I specialize. But this year I was like, you know what? I miss shooting so much and I need money. So with those two things motivating me, I was able to make that happen. So that was fun. Win number 7, I Skyped with my grandparents more than normal. If you guys listened to my last year's podcast episode for this kind of like yearly review and goal setting, I have some kind of a block with my like family relationships inside of me. I'm still dealing with it and still figuring it out, but this year has become a lot easier for me to reach out to family and Skype grandparents. And although I didn't hit my goal of Skyping with them once a month, I did Skype with them more than I ever have. And I know you guys are probably like, huh, how do you only talk to your grandparents? Like some of you might be so family oriented and wondering, how are you speaking to them so little? We all have our things. We all have our things that, you know, childhood traumas or things that have happened. And my current grandparents did not do anything to me. They are incredible. They are so loving, always so just literally, they love me unconditionally. Whenever I call them, they're not mad about me not calling. They're just like, oh, we're so happy you called. Like, they're just most incredible grandparents. I'm still figuring out what it is. I think it is because they live all the way in Poland, and I'm scared to lose them one day, and I don't want to get too attached. So I rather just not get attached. That's, I think, what it is. And obviously that's not the best way to think of it. Oh man, scared. That's like hard to share. But what is so liberating is feeling the fear and doing something anyway. Right now, as I'm saying all of this, I'm scared shitless that you guys are judging me for being like a bad granddaughter. But you know what? It's only through vulnerability that we connect, and it's only through vulnerability that we can learn from one another. So here I am cracking open my heart to you because you are worth it. You're worth it. I want you to not feel alone in whatever you're going through, because maybe you're dealing with the same thing I am, right? Okay. So win number 8, I spent a lot of quality time with Rory and Abby. And of course, oh my gosh, this was so much fun this year. Rory, when March came around, he ended up coming home with all his like computer equipment because he worked in an office. And he's like, oh, I'm going to be working from home for the next 2 weeks. And all I've ever wanted was like from him to work from home, so he didn't have to like sit in traffic, so we can have more quality time together. And I was like, yay, oh my God. But he's like, I think it's going to be longer than 2 weeks. Like, this was back in March. And of course, he was right, because he's still here. And man, we've just had so much fun. The amount of time that we've had additional, like, I'm so grateful for it. For example, instead of him coming home at 6 or 7 because he's sitting in traffic, we can now start hanging out like 5 or 6, depending on how late we work or what we're feeling like doing. And we can actually do everything. We can go for a walk, we can work out, we can cuddle and watch TV or whatever. Instead of feeling like, okay, you're back at 7, we have to eat dinner, and then, okay, do we work out tonight or do we watch TV? Like, it's been so much fun. And then of course, dogs are loving this time because they're getting so much more time with their fam jam. So Abby, just, man, having her be with us more often, I've been loving that so much too. And yeah, and it's been really fun to navigate how to work from home together. And I think we've done that really, really well. Because I mean, I've been used to having the whole house to myself working from home. So there were points of like, okay, he has a lot of conference calls. How do I deal with this? So I just kind of figured out different ways, such as like maybe listening to music in my ears, or now we switched, which was so much fun. Instead of our bedroom being upstairs, we brought it downstairs to where the dining room was, and we brought the dining room table upstairs to the bedroom, because Rory was just working out of the dining room, and it was like an open space in the kitchen. And whenever I wanted to go to the kitchen to like make lunch or anything, I had to be super quiet because he was on a call, and it was kind of like tiptoeing around. So then randomly one night we're like, why don't we just like bring the bedroom downstairs to the main level? No one's coming over. Let's just make it like a loft, and upstairs he'll have like the biggest room in the house as his office. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that equals doors, and that equals more quiet time for me to focus. So we did that, and yeah, we did that recently, and that's so much fun. So yeah, we just had so much fun together, and I'm really grateful for this time. So that was a huge win. Okay, win number 9. So I am so proud of this. I didn't go down the road of feeling stressed about the year. So it was so easy for me, and this is already a natural part of me, I feel like, but it was so easy for me to surrender to the universe, to what is. Normally risk doesn't scare me. I'm like, I have such this like belief in knowing that everything is happening for me and not to me. And it's like ingrained in me, and I don't know where it came from. But it's just there. And so throughout the whole year, I wasn't in panic. I wasn't in stress. I was just like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Like, let me figure out how to make this work. Right. And what can I control? What can I work on? So that attitude I'm so proud of, and it helped us a lot. And of course, this is definitely tied to Rory and I being able to feel calm about our financial situation. And this is kind of like this is something that is a win kind of from over the past couple of years, because a couple of years ago we decided to like get serious about actually, instead of just spending frivolously, we're like, okay, let's like actually put away some money. Let's start building some wealth. So we were disciplined enough to actually start saving. And then now that this has happened to us, it's kind of like our reward of like, wow, because we made certain decisions in the past couple of years to start saving, we felt like we had this nice little safety net of money in case he lost his job when my income got affected, right? So that was huge. And I think that was like a nice pat on the back for us that we actually made those choices and now we can reap the rewards. And not only that, like, man, it paid off so much to have that safety blanket, and we loved that feeling so much that this year through the pandemic we decided to to like adjust our spendies. So instead of spending a lot on dining out and travel and experiences and a lot on clothes, oh my gosh, I used to spend so much on clothes, we kind of just cut back our spending and decided to see if it was possible to not even touch our savings as my income got affected this year, because my income I think dropped by 40% or so. So yeah, we wanted to see what would happen. And yeah, you know what, we didn't have to touch our savings. So man, I'm just so proud with how we did that, and how because of our past choices, we were able to not feel stressed and really enjoy this quality time we have together. So guys, the choices you are making now in your life affect your future and affect the quality of your life later. So really, really make sure to rethink all of the habits and choices you are making currently, which will be fun to go over in the next episode when you are setting your goals. Okay, so win number 10. I rediscovered my passion for reading. I've had so much more time to read and I'm loving it. And I'm just going to share some of my favorite reads. Some of them were Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo, Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad, Limitless by Jim Quick, Traction. Oh crap, I forgot who that was by. The book is called Traction. The Art of Making Memories by Mike Viking. I think I fucked it up. And The One Thing, which I'm reading now by Gary Keller. So those are some of my favorite reads, and it just feels so good to be all cozied up and reading, especially now in the winter. Okay, win number 11. I made on average $575 per month in passive income from stock photography. So this was so much fun, especially this year as my income dropped and I was still able to kind of like bring that in without really doing much, except of course like creating a couple more stock shoots to add in to my portfolio. But I've been building my stock portfolio for about 2 years now, and my goal is to have $1,000 a month of passive income from stock photography. So to see it just slowly increase to that felt really, really good. So that was a fun win. And win number 12, I rediscovered my confidence in simply being me. So this is, I think maybe over time I'll share more about this, but I felt like in the last 2 years, with the introduction of the education side of my business, I've kind of got stuck in my head on trying to understand how to show up. And I was like looking to how other people are doing it in the industry. And I know that through my wedding photography business in the past 6 years, I gained this clarity of who I am and showing up how I am and exactly who I serve and why I serve them. I had so much clarity around that it was so easy for me to just show up and be. And then with learning a whole new kind of way of having, like running a business, a digital education business, I got lost in thinking that I should do certain things instead of simply figuring out how to do it my way. And I feel like I finally figured it out. I finally came back to that Sarah, that like core human being, who I am and how I want to share things that I want to share. So that is a huge win. I feel so good. I felt stuck for 2 years and now I feel like I have like kind of like a rebirth. So that's been amazing. And finally, the last win number 13, I created my 10-year vision, my 3-year vision, in my 1-year vision, and I'm beginning to implement the entrepreneurial operating system I learned from the book Traction to be able to expand, grow, and impact more photographers in a positive way. So basically, usually if I read a book, I will take some tidbits from it and kind of just get inspired, right? But with this book, I was able to realize what was missing in my business in the direction that I'm taking it. So of course, as you have new dreams, new goals, new way of doing business, you need to learn from someone who's been there before and then apply the systems that worked for them. Because that way you're not spending years and years trying to figure out how to make it happen. You just learn from them, apply what has worked for them and created results for them, and then you can execute on that and get results. So I know this is kind of like confusing, but basically if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have a vision for 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, then you don't know what goals you need to prioritize. And that kind of like blew my mind. I was always making 1-year goals, but I never thought about, but what is my 3-year vision, my 10-year vision? And this book helped me figure that out. And this book is more for kind of entrepreneurs that are already ready to like build their team. So for example, if you're already running your photography business with someone who helps you with so many tasks like culling, editing, slideshow design, blogging, album design, if you already have all those systems in place, this book is kind of like the next step of like, okay, but now if you want to like scale your business more, this is what you need to do. So that was a really big win for me to be able to find clarity on a new system to implement with my virtual assistant for us to be able to grow this business bigger. Okay, so those were the wins. Now it's time for the lessons. And for the lessons, I have about 10 for you. And again, vulnerability cultivates connection. And I'm ready to share. So lesson number 1, I realize that I'm doing much better than I give myself credit for. So, the constant battle of an entrepreneur or even just a human, like, am I good enough? Right. And through so much of this year, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel good enough when I didn't have as many students enroll in OMI. I didn't feel good enough when I realized like I was just shooting fewer weddings than I normally did. And it kind of left me thinking like, who am I without photography? Who am I without reaching my goals? So it's kind of a big kind of like realization and wake up call. And I just kind of realized, I looked back at like my past weddings from the past years and listened to past podcast episodes. And when you give yourself that kind of space between something you've created and you instead of judging it in the moment, being like, I just created this, let me listen to it, and then you nitpick at everything that you did. If you give yourself a space, like a year, if you look back at your year's work last year, you kind of look at it from a different perspective and lens, and you can give yourself credit for like, wow, I photographed that wedding. I did that. I took those photos. And so I kind of went on a journey of looking backwards, and I realized that I was also judging myself last year and the year before that. I felt like I could have done better, always could have done better. And so this year I was like, wait, Sarah, you're doing so well. Like you're doing your absolute best, and that's all that matters. And so I gave myself that credit and it felt really good. So that was a really, really powerful lesson I learned this year. Lesson number 2, I became self-aware of my ego's need for external validation. So I think it was because my business just slowed down with how many weddings I was photographing and how many students I thought I was going to be supporting through OMI. I basically realized like, I feel like I'm not getting validation from the outside world of like booking more and doing all this, because bookings also slowed down, right? For 2021, not that many people were booking because they didn't know what was happening with the pandemic. And I realized that how much my well-being and what I thought of myself was tied to that validation. And so this was like a very valuable lesson again. And I'm just so happy that I realized recently I'm already whole as I am. That is something I will get into, I think, in the next podcast episode. But yeah, I really love that lesson as well. Okay, lesson number 3. This is a very, very important one. I learned about white privilege and what I can do better to support Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I took a hard look at myself and I realized that being ignorant to the lack of like equity and equality BIPOC individuals and communities have is part of the problem. And through learning all about that, I realized that I was part of the problem. So I made it a point to be more self-aware of the subconscious programming I had through just, past experiences, going to school, past, societal norms, past anything that's happening in the media, right? And I had to know and I learned how to reprogram it. So a book I would highly recommend would be Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. And also a good episode to go back and listen to in this podcast is episode 29, all about how we can support the BIPOC community as photographers, when I had Sayori and Devante share their perspectives as photographers in that community. So this was a huge lesson. And yeah, I hope you guys had that realization too, because I didn't realize how it was part of the problem. I thought I accepted everyone for who they are and equally and all of that, but we all have subconscious bias and programming that we may not even realize we had. Just like we have subconscious programming in our minds about different beliefs of what we're capable of. Like, for example, it's impossible for me to make 6 figures, or it's so hard to work out twice a week, or like we just have so much subconscious programming that it's so important for us to dive into that. And yeah, so this kind of taught me so much about what I can do for others in the BIPOC community. So I definitely encourage you to go read Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. That was the huge eye-opener, and I feel so grateful for her to have taken the time to write that book to teach us how we can be better and support the BIPOC community. Okay, lesson number 4. I realized that I wasted a lot of my energy and well-being by checking stats constantly. So, when you go onto Instagram and you kind of hit refresh on your Instagram and you see, oh, how many more people liked my recent picture? Or, oh, how many people have seen my story? And you're constantly refreshing, constantly seeing, oh, how many people like my picture again? And man, that's exhausting. And now that I have this education part of my business, I have more stats to check. I have how many podcast downloads have I had? How many photographers are on my email list? All this kind of stuff. And what I would do every day, multiple times a day, is check all these stats. And I probably have like 8 stats now to check with everything that I have going on. And if I'm just constantly checking those stats every day, it's taking me away from like the big focused work and the big impact work I need to do. And it's just like not even the best, because sometimes I have big expectations of, oh, this episode's probably going to get this many downloads. I think it's going to be a big one. And then when you see a lower number, you automatically like shit on yourself, and that does no one any good. So I realized that I wasted a lot of energy on that. And that's a big no for me moving forward. I am working on a habit of saying no to that every day. And I'm going to actually have my virtual assistant, Rachel, put together like a scorecard for me every week that I'm going to review to see my stats, because I still need to know how I'm doing and be able to keep learning how to move my business forward. But yeah, I cannot keep checking those stats daily because I know that it drains me. So that was a lesson. Lesson number 5, that it's easy to eat from home if you batch cook your meals on Sundays and outsource dinners via Good Food. Okay, I know this may sound ridiculous, but I would never batch cook on Sundays, because on Sundays I would be like, oh, I just want to keep relaxing the rest of the day. I don't want to like cook because I don't enjoy cooking. And so I wouldn't. And then that meant that I would spend so much more money on like Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats during the week for lunches, and then we would have our Good Food dinners at night. So we were pretty much set for like our dinners, but the problem was lunchtime. I was always like hungry, and I would just like spontaneously have to order Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats, and that ends up adding up. That's a lot of money. So we kind of looked at like, okay, is that the smartest way for us to spend our money? It's like, no. So we ended up starting to cook, make sure we're prepped on Sundays for lunches for the week. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have lunch ready in the fridge. Just go downstairs, put it together, eat it, good to go for the rest of the day until dinner. So that was a funny little lesson there. It's just, yeah, just my little thing of not liking cooking. And, but yeah, it was nice to know that if I just prep on Sundays, I'm good for the week. So it's kind of, I reframed my belief around it with thinking that it was hard to prep lunches into thinking it's easy because I just have to do it once a week. Okay, lesson number 6, that there is always a way to learn how to work smarter than harder. Like there is always room for improvement. And when you make that improvement happen for yourself to work smarter than harder, life feels so much more full. So what had happened to me is I figured out the system, which is Outsourcing Made Easy, the OMI system, of how to outsource your editing, culling, album design, blog creation, slideshow creation, all these things, and have so much more time in your hands to just focus on shooting more or marketing more and just or spending quality time with friends and family, right? So I figured out the system and it was running for me like a well-oiled machine that I basically had so much more time to actually start this new venture, which is a podcast and teaching other photographers, helping other photographers. So with that whole new set of responsibilities and tasks I had to do, I had to figure out new systems to put in place for the education part of my business. So I would sometimes get caught in the trap that I teach my students not to get caught up in and saying, oh, just because a task takes you 30 minutes to do and in your eyes it's quick, it doesn't mean you need to be the one to do it. And I realized that over the year, I realized that I was like holding on to certain tasks like I used to with my editing and album design and all of that. That took away from me growing more, that took away from me maybe spending a little bit more time on self-care or whatever it is. So I found out that no matter where you're at, there's always room for improvement to learn how to work smarter and not harder. Okay, lesson number 7. The bigger I dream, the more it matters to have bigger picture systems in place. And this lesson was from Traction. It kind of ties into the lesson I just told you, but I really liked that statement. And yeah, it's impossible for you to achieve your next bigger goals if you keep doing things the same way you've always done them. So something needs to change in order for you to have a different result. So that was a big lesson as well. All right, lesson number 8. I have stories based on my own perceptions, and so does everyone else, and that's okay. So in this time where we felt so divided with everyone kind of, feeling things from fear and speaking from fear and acting from fear because there was so much unknown, there was so much divide because people were judging one another so intensely, like, oh my gosh, you're not wearing a mask, you're a bad person. You're not doing this, you're a bad person, right? But man, who are we to say what is right and wrong when each of us have our own personal experience, our own reality, and our own stories, our own perceptions of what is true or not in this lifetime. And this is a big topic to get into. I'm not going to go too deep, but basically I found myself slowly getting into that headspace of that energy of like judgment of what other people are doing or not doing. And it didn't last long. It lasted like maybe a couple weeks, but I quickly snapped myself out of it because I felt like I was always a person that was just like that person that thought you never know what someone else is going through. Like, feel like send them compassion, send them love, respect their point of view, and just respect your own point of view and do what is best for you. But there's no space for judgment. Like, just as much as you're judging someone else, you would be as hurt if they were judging you back. So why do we want to spread that energy, right? So I basically have learned that we all perceive things differently, and that's not, our perceptions aren't good or bad, they just are. And I learned a lot of that through meditation as well. Okay, lesson number 9. Movement and meditation are crucial to my well-being. I think I say this lesson every year, and I do it on purpose because I want to make sure it's on the forefront of my mind. I never want it to slip, because every time it does for like a 2-week period or something, I can feel the difference. So movement and meditation are crucial to my well-being, and I'm holding that lesson tight because I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of binge eating again and not moving and feeling like crap and putting myself down in my mind. So yeah, that is always a lesson I'm going to carry through my entire life. I always want it to be on the forefront of my mind. And finally, lesson number 10. The answers I seek are always within me. So I learned that if I pay attention to my higher self or my inner voice or my gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, I already know what I need to do or what the right thing to do is. There's so many photographers that I see were asking so many questions of like, this is happening with my clients. They're thinking of rescheduling and I don't know how to go about it. Do I do this? Do I do that? And obviously there's nothing wrong with you asking questions. This is a whole new like situation where we are in life, and maybe you want to see what other people are doing to get inspired, or maybe once you get that answer from some photographers on what you think is best to do, how to go about it, then maybe the answer will come to you on what you think is best, right? So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with asking those questions. I think though that if instead of maybe asking those questions, if you just sat with yourself and really asked yourself, like, what feels good inside my body to do, inside my soul, inside my gut to do for my clients or for me, what is the compromise? Where do we both win? Where do we both feel taken care of? Then you have the answer. And that's just one example, but there have been so many examples where I kind of was figuring out something to do around maybe my education part of my business. And I would go around asking, what do you think? What do you think to people or Rory? And at the end of it all, I just came back to where I started in the first place, which was the thing that I initially thought would be a good idea. And that's what I ended up doing. And it was a good idea. So just know that the answers you seek are always within you. So that's it. Those were the wins and lessons for 2020. Okay, so now make sure to tune into the next episode where I share with you what 2021 has in store for us and the 3 steps I took to plan for it. And that, of course, will include my new goals for 2021 that I'll share with you. It's definitely a powerful episode you don't want to miss so that you can start off 2021 clear and empowered, and we can do it together. And lastly, if this episode helped you in any way feel less alone or inspired you to think a different way, anything like that, please reach out to me via Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah, no H, Monica with a K. Shoot me a DM. Let me know. I literally live for those messages. Those are what inspire me and give me the energy and the energy boost I need to create these episodes for you. So it would mean a lot. And so go DM me right now. Let me know. And then tune into the next episode 44. And yeah, I cannot wait to connect with you about it. And I cannot wait to hear all about your 2021 goals once you're done with the next episode. Bye. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.